In this weekly video tip, we're going to undertake a case study of how to use a combination of features found in SongSurgeon to solve a problem submitted by a customer. Hi everyone, this is Jim Todd with SongSurgeon, and here is what that customer submitted. I have a 2x recording that I need to slow down to its 1x speed. This recording is of a church service and contains both a series of small talks and a musical performance. I need to slow it down and also to save each of the parts separately. Using Audacity, I had no problem with the voices when changing tempo. However, as you pointed out in your YouTube video, the music portion is distorted. So how can I use your program to accomplish these things? So that's the question that the customer posed, and I like to tackle this sort of step by step. And the first step, of course, is to open the file in SongSurgeon, and you can see it here on my screen. The next step would then be to slow it down because she's telling us that this is at a 2x speed. So let's just listen.
Hi, welcome to the advanced workshop for session 6. Now you probably noticed that this material we're working on is getting more
and as you can see, it's certainly at a much faster speed than it needs to be, or that it should be normally. So let's just reset this and let's start it playing again. Now let's slow it down to 50% because it's at a twofold
increase. Hi, welcome to the advanced
increase.
workshop for session 6. Now you've probably noticed that this material we're working on is getting more and more complex.
So as you can hear, we've now slowed it down to the 50% level, which means we've cut the speed in half. And so if we were at 2x and we've cut it in half, we've cut it down to the 1x speed or the normal speed. So that first part is pretty simply done. And when we apply this change, it applies it to the entire file. So that's step one. For step two, then, I would recommend that we identify each of the individual segments. Now, there are two ways to do this. One is to sort of take a quick view with your eye. And when you do that, you can see that this part over here on the right-hand side is different than this on the left. It's at a different volume, and that's probably a good indication that this is significantly different than whatever these things are. And my guess is that this is the music, and these are the individual small talks. And in fact, I've listened to this, and that indeed is what this is. So what I'd like to suggest that you do is first, using markers, delineate these things. So there's marker 1, marker 2, marker 3, and marker 4. And you can fine-tune these, and in fact, I would suggest that you do that by simply zooming in. And when we do that, you can see here's our marker, and you can grab a hold of it and slide it. So I'm going to move it to the beginning of this first talk, and I'm also going to edit this and say talk 1. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the other two talks that are here. So I have now delineated each of these. So talk 1 starts here, talk 2 starts here, talk 3 here, and then the musical performance starts here. As we begin step 3, then let's just remind ourselves of what the goal here is. The goal is to save each of these 3 talks as well as the musical performance in separate files and have them play at the normal speed. And with these delineations made for each of the individual segments, let's go ahead now and set up looping areas around each of these 4 different segments. So I'm simply going to do left click and right click to set this up. Okay, so now you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 looping areas, and again, since we want these to contain the entire talk or the entire musical performance, we should probably just zoom in and check each of these to make certain that the loops are set up correctly and that they're fine-tuned as they need to be. So there's the first one. You can see the looping area. I'm going to slide it so we don't have a lot of extra silence in front of it. So that looks good for a beginning point. Let's zoom back out to 50. Let's zoom all the way out. Let's move our progress indicator then so we can get to this particular area here. Let's zoom back in. And when we do that, you can see here's our ending loop point for loop 1. I'm going to move it back in so I can refine it and make it a little closer to the end so there's not a lot of silence at the end. I'm going to do the same with loop 2 for the beginning, going to move it closer to the beginning. Essentially, you would do the same thing on all of these 4 looping areas that we have set up to refine the placement of these. And now with each of these looping areas created, we can begin the process of creating separate files. And how do we do that? Well, we do it by placing the progress indicator inside of the first looping area, which is talk 1. We go to export current loop, which is L1 or loop 1. We select that. Save this as an MP3 file because we want it to be reasonably small. Let's call it talk 1. We click save. It's going to open this MP3 quality settings window. I'm going to select something like 192, and we've got to match the hertz rate of the original file, which is 48,000 hertz here. So we're going to select 192 kilobits per second, 48,000 hertz. Select OK. As you can see down here, SongSurgeon is exporting this first file, and it is slowing the speed of it down to 50%. So once it is saved, it will play back at the normal speed. And essentially we do the same thing for each of the successive loops. We go to loop 2, we go to export the current loop, save it as an MP3 again, call this talk 2, click save, quality settings again, going to select 192, 48, click OK, allow SongSurgeon to export it and create talk 2. Similarly, we'll do talk 3, and then we'll do the musical performances. And as you can see, we're finishing up the export of this last piece, this musical performance piece. We have now completed that, and let's now go ahead, and if we were to choose to open any one of these 4, they should be available to us. We go to open, save the changes. No, we don't need to save these changes because we're done. And here you can see them, talk 1, 2, 3, and the musical performance. So there they are. And SongSurgeon has then accomplished what this customer asked us to do. So in conclusion, let's look at the features that we've used in SongSurgeon to accomplish this. We first slowed the tempo down to 50% to get the recording back to a normal speed. We then next use these markers up here, and we changed the labels on them so we could approximately delineate where each of the pieces in this recording were. After that, we created looping areas for each of these 4 different segments. And once the looping areas were completed, and we used the export command to create 1, 2, 3, 4 new files that each were slowed down to the normal tempo, and each of these files then could be accessed and played individually. So those are all the different features used in this particular case study. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.